Good evening and welcome to In My Eyes. My name is Ollie and I'm here today with our guest presenter Isabelle.
Hello, I am so excited to be here and we have a very special show lined up for you tonight.
Indeed we do. Now the theme of this week is Down syndrome. Today we'll be meeting some people who are challenging misconceptions about what living with a learning disability looks like. Whilst the intention is to be celebratory, educational and allow for personal reflection, there will be some topics discussed that some viewers may find challenging. Viewer discretion is advised.
We will be having a look at what it is like to grow up and live in the UK with Down syndrome. In the studio today we have Shauna, the actor, dancer and Special Olympic swimmer. Welcome Shauna. Now tell us a little bit about yourself.
I did swimming competitions and I did lots of medals swimming. Team in TB Special Olympics Los Angeles back in 2012 and it was good actually. Really, I'm excited to do this in here in the studio. Thank you so much.
So Shauna, you won 3 medals at the Special Olympics back in 2012 and went to, as you just said, to Puerto Rico and Los Angeles.
Yeah.
What was that like? What was it like going to them places?
That was a UK diving jump Special Olympics in Puerto Rico, Los Angeles, and I've been a lot of swimming, of competitions, and in 2010 I won 1 gold and 1 silver at our Special Olympics team, and I did the relay as well. That's 1 gold relay.
Yeah, what was it like when you were there? Tell us a bit about that.
What it is I've been swimming 2 hours and I've been in a team with chest penguins, and it was good actually. Been seeing Nicole Scherzinger from the X Factor.
Oh, what was that like? Did you enjoy it? Bet that was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So you're not only a highly decorated Special Olympic swimmer, but you also said before you did acting.
Yeah, I do acting, yeah.
Tell us more about that.
I do Toy Story Thai, but I don't do Toy Story Thai. I do Hollywood, because that's what I do my acting in. And then after done my acting, I've been in lots of shows in the Empire and the Exxon Theatre.
Yeah. I hear you have a job in a cafe.
Yeah, I do.
How do you got to work in the cafe?
The Reader Cafe, I do teas, coffees, clean the tables, stuffing bags, nap bags, clean the tables again, just some serving people, and that's what I do at the Reader.
Okay, what are your next goals?
I'm going to do some more acting. That's what I'm doing on Monday. I'm doing the show at Unity Studio on a Monday night show. And maybe a lot of swearing in it. I don't know what swearing is going to be. It's in the Unity Theatre, and that's where I'm doing my acting.
All right.
You are amazing. You have achieved so much in your lifetime already. Do you see yourself as a role model?
Yeah, I do. Talk about Down syndrome, about young people have Down syndrome. And that's the role model. Is like when we have Down syndrome, it's like we have face like glasses on, or maybe like the room. That's why I acted with my dad in the pool. Thank you so much for having me talking to the younger people that have Down syndrome.
Thank you so much for coming
Thank you.
and talking to us today,
Yeah.
Shauna.
Thank you.
Being able to achieve so much at just 29 years old is so inspiring, but it's important to ask who was there right at the beginning. We visited the Down Syndrome Liverpool's new parent support group to get an insight into the early years of a person with Down syndrome's life. Let's take a look.
So my experience of having a child with Down syndrome is entirely new and a big massive roller coaster really. It was a postnatal diagnosis, so it was a big surprise, but you know, I do love a challenge individually.
So initially it was a shock because it was like a postnatal diagnosis, and I'm from like a medical background, so when the baby was born it was a different birth to my first, and initially I think it was that fear and that, oh my gosh, I can't do this.
I think the shock for me was the fact that you can only really find out the diagnosis set in stone at such a long period after birth. So obviously we had an idea when he was first born, but by the time genetic tests and stuff was done, we didn't actually find out a confirmed diagnosis till 5 days after birth. I think as well when he was first born, we had a really positive experience, to be fair, but there were so many doctors that were saying, oh, you know, you'll be referred for X, Y and Z, for, you know, monitored for heart issues and for mobility and for this. The list was endless, but actually it was never ever like that. I think that was the most surprising thing for me after Bobby was born, that what you get told and what is actual reality is an entirely different thing.
It was like people were waiting for that genetic test, whereas deep down I knew that, you know, my little boy had it and I had to deal with it, but it was hard, that initial bond, because it was a shock and it was I was in an environment which I didn't feel comfortable. I felt at times some of the medical staff were a bit cold, and, you know, instead of saying congratulations like they did with my little girl, it was like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, and some people actually came and said, oh, he doesn't look like he's got Downs, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe they just said that. I think what people said in the initial bit, some people were really positive, but the majority of people were quite negative towards the condition and quite stereotypical.
One thing that I do think is super important is that when a child is born with Down syndrome, the lack of support that is available from hospitals in terms of, you know, signposting you to the right support in your area. So when Bobby was first born, what I found is that no one ever signposted us to Down Syndrome Liverpool or Positive About Down Syndrome or any of the local or national groups where you could get that support instantly. Instead, what I did find, and I find it is like this across the board, and parents have the same sort of experience and issues, is that people tend to get given like a pile of flyers, like photocopy flyers. That, to be perfectly honest, any person who has just given birth, new to motherhood, obviously new to a diagnosis, the last thing anyone is going to want to do is read through a pile of photocopied leaflets that, to be honest, has loads of negative factual things that is, no one's going to be motivated to read that kind of thing.
When I was in them early stages, like Down Syndrome Liverpool were amazing for me, and they're like supported, because going to normal groups, inverted commas, I found it a bit hard. Like I felt like I couldn't open up, whereas other groups have felt really, you know, welcomed, and, you know, disability is supported. So I think it's like, try and put yourself in them positive situations, and put yourself around people that maybe have been there before or are going through it themselves.
Groups such as our monthly session that we have on are really, really vital. Now, I've been a trustee for Down Syndrome Liverpool for 3 years now, but from a personal experience, when Bobby was first born and he was not long after, and I was kind of having a little look around at what support options were available, I came across Down Syndrome Liverpool when he was like 6 months old, and when I first started attending, it is a lifesaver. Like, it is so vital to be part of a community that understands that one-to-one support, just a conversation, a chat, a bit of reassurance where you can go, oh, do you know what, actually, there are so many people in the same boat, I'm not just the only person, and it wouldn't be such an isolated experience. And I find that as soon as you're signposted these kinds of things, it does make a massive, massive difference, and it just makes you feel part of something new rather than the entire opposite. And the opportunities to meet new people and to learn lots of new things is invaluable.
Such incredible work.
Agreed. What a fabulous group.
And we are now joined by Rebecca and Jill, who are members of the support group.
Thank you.
So, Rebecca, Zane's diagnosis was postnatal. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I had scans very frequently. I wanted a natural birth because my first was a section. And then when Zane was born, I just felt like something was wrong. He was quite floppy, he looked a bit blue. Mum ran out, oh my gosh, it's a boy, and straight away I just thought something's not right. Then everyone seemed to leave us, and I was trying to pick a name, and I just couldn't see me or see the family. And I said to my husband, do you think he's got Down syndrome? And my husband said, I don't know. And I pulled the buzzer, and this senior midwife, only because of like my job, I knew like she was in dark blue.
Yeah.
And I said, do you think he's got Down syndrome? And she just kind of really matter of fact, oh yeah, one crease, and then she just left. And then family came in with balloons and things, and I was just like, he's gone. Like, these doctors just came in, like pulled his arms and stuff, and he just went. And I just thought, like, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
And then my little girl came in, where's mummy crying? And then he went to special care. I did go round to see him, and he was in like a cot, and we had all people round him, and I think the medical team knew. But obviously they were saying we need to scan his heart to check that's okay, he needed oxygen. And I think that obviously it was a big shock to us as a family, and I think it was totally different to my first birth. And I said to Jill, I remember just being stood, I think I'd just like, I don't know, changed Zane's nappy, and this consultant, I remember to this day, she just came over and she just said, trisomy 21, and off she walked. And like, I was like, oh my gosh, like, didn't cry, just like, I knew anyway, but like, I just thought, you could have got me in a room or spoken, you know, like, would you tell someone, you know, that they had a broken leg, or that your child, you know, maybe had a infection in the lungs, you know, would you tell them like that, matter of fact? And I think it was just, I just wanted to get out the hospital as soon as I could.
Jill, your son Benjamin,
Yeah.
do you want to tell us a bit about what it was like from the very start when you first found out?
Yeah, so we also found out postnatally. I kind of noticed that something was different when he was born. So I had a planned section. I had an emergency section with my first son. I was a little older as well, and the advice and recommendation was to have a planned cesarean. So that's what I did. And as soon as he was born, I could see he was quite floppy, and things were different. He looked different to the way Thomas, my older son, had looked. When we went into recovery, I said, does he look to you like he might have Down syndrome? And the nurse had said, yes, he does, to be honest. She said, I'll go and get the consultant straight away. And they went and got the consultant, and she reviewed him there. And she said, we will do some blood tests to confirm, but I think your suspicions are correct.
How would you say we're supported post-birth?
I think people presume that you get given counselling and support, you don't.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I think it's what I found, like Jill, like Zane's got a look of DS, but like it was more like the medical side that like, you know, like I was worried about rather than the condition, whereas a lot of people seem home on the condition. Like, well, why is my child getting, like, you know, people coming from different areas to look at this child? It's a baby. You know, it's a baby with a name, and I think there's a lot to learn about, you know, like not delivering the news as such, but like, you know, celebrating a birth and, you know, saying, yeah, you know, we think they might have this condition. With this condition comes X, Y, and Z, but this is how, you know, we're going to support you.
Yeah. Would you say it was treated a lot differently than a normal birth then?
I think there's a feeling of love. You know, we felt that, you know, that Benjamin was loved and accepted. But there's a lot of clumsy language used, isn't there? I think when you're in that situation, and I think from a kind of healthcare provision point of view, those people and steps in place, you know, to be clear about what's going to happen next, and it done in a tactful, loving, careful, helpful way, is just really, really important when you're dealing with something that's a little bit unexpected and a little bit scary.
And I think if we know that with the condition comes X, Y, and Z, let's support from the beginning to help that child, really, you know,
getting the care in as early as possible. Basically.
He's been out to, I don't know about Benji, but, you know, been out to nursery for quite a lot, and, you know, he loves being around children. He's in a mainstream nursery setting, and I think if that was done, the first, you know, they go for a 6-week check, and I remember, I hate the words, but I remember my husband walked out, and the GP, we've since changed GPs, but English wasn't his first language, and my husband said, like, at what level Down syndrome has he got? He said, well, I don't know the level of mental retardation your son's going to have. And I just went. And then from that day, I took all the appointments. Rory kind of went down the work path, and my maternity leave was just being in and out of hospitals. And I think the terminology sometimes that people use is quite archaic. And, you know, I always say, look at the person first and the condition after it if you need to.
So would you like to tell us a bit about how Zane and Benjamin are doing now?
He's just doing amazing. Like he goes to something called Joe Jingles, and he's, you know, up with the rest of the children with no diagnoses, and, you know, he's listening to the teacher, following instruction. He always tells people to get up and dance. He loves singing to Singing Hands. He loves You Are the Reason, and he sang that at his christening recently. And he's just like, infectious personality. He goes swimming with Total Swimming, and the instructor, she's actually, you know, gone on YouTube channels and self-taught herself Makaton, and she sent a video the other day when Zane was in hospital. He was quite poorly, and she said, you know, we're missing you, and she signed it all the way through, and Zane was watching it, and he was like, oh, and like it's just lovely that Zane not only is teaching us so much, but also so many other people. And like, I'm a learning disability champion now in Aintree, and I did a talk yesterday. I'm a physio by background, but did a talk to the learning disability champions, and saying how beneficial Makaton is for people with a learning disability or English not the first language, dementia, patients with dementia. And I think, you know, for me, Zane going into a mainstream setting or a specialist setting, him using Makaton and communicating and showing how much he's improving, it's making other people go, oh, I might try that. And there's actually children that haven't got a diagnosis that have started Makaton after seeing Zane, and it's had a really positive effect. I know he's going to go on to do wonderful, you know, big things, and you know, he's a little superstar, and I love him dearly. Yeah.
Benjamin, so they're only 3 days apart, so he's a similar kind of age and stage to Zane, and he's chatting away. We've also done Makaton, which is just fantastic. We love it as well, a big advocate for Makaton, and we've the mainstream nursery that Benjamin was going into, where he was going prior to where he is now, have found funding and really tried to push for their staff to learn Makaton, which is wonderful as well. He's a chatterbox. His chatting is coming on really well. He loves singing and dancing and loves going to nursery. Hugs, tells me to sit there. And he's just a lovely, spirited, And what's lovely is, you know, that he knows, you know, both the positive and the negative. So he's a grump as well. Yeah. So some people say to me, oh, he'll always hug you and he'll always be a happy chap, you know, but, you know, he's the full package. He's the full package of person, so he can be terrible as well as lovely. But yeah, again, you know, swimming and loving nursery and loving life, and can't imagine life without him.
Yeah. Yeah. So Rebecca, what is your biggest concern for Zane as he's growing up?
Yeah, my fear is more like society as a whole, you know, accepting rather than, you know, Zane himself.
So it's basically like making other people aware of the whole situation around it.
Inclusion, acceptance, isn't it? It's being free to be who you are, to realise your own potential, to use your own gifts and strengths that every single person in the world has. Whatever you've got going on, you have the right to fulfil those dreams and potential, and to be accepted. Yeah.
Some very honest and open pieces of information there. Thanks so much for coming, Rebecca and Jill. Forging a career in the current world can be tricky, but keen farmer Matthew has already made a break into his chosen career path.
Hi, my name is Matthew, I'm a farmer. I woke up about 6:15 because my uncle wanted me to come to the farm because he wanted some help. I enjoy working the farm because I like to get muscly, and then I like to work different areas in the farm. Done some driving, and I've done all the work over here.
Hello, I'm Paul, I'm the farmer here. We have Matthew working with us. He helps us with a few different jobs. He helps us in the leek field, he's good at peeling leeks. There's a few jobs he does, and he's really good with the dogs. I have 2 border collies and a little Jack Russell.
Paul is a great boss because he teaches me how to drive a tractor, and he teaches me how to cut the collies, and he teaches me lots of stuff like sorting spuds and all things like that, really. I always like coming round in this farm with Pug because he is really good at doing farming. I like working with the family because they support me a lot, really, and I'm grateful when they do that. I don't think Down syndrome makes me different. I work just the same everyone does.
Matthew interacts really well with us all here. He seems to get on with everyone. We can joke with him and he can have a laugh. He'll take it well. He doesn't get stroppy or angry, so that always helps. It's easier to work with good company. I don't think his disability does set him back too badly. He likes what he's doing and he's always willing to work, which is a great help.
But you know, I really love dogs, and I am going to be a pet rescuer, really. I like to have a big farm with all the animals in, and I like to have cows, horses, pigs, and also chickens.
If you were considering hiring Matthew for work, he's really good at what he does, he's good at listening and he wants to work. So you're halfway there with that. He can join in and he's happy to get on with everybody, so he's good to have around.
Thanks for watching, and I'm really grateful you're listening, so thank you very much.
He's certainly on his way to becoming an animal farm rescuer. Now, it has recently been reported that in the UK, around 90% of babies found to have Down syndrome are aborted. Some UK families are fighting the government to change a law that allows women to abort unborn babies that are diagnosed with Down syndrome at any time up until birth.
Lynn Murray is here with us today to discuss why she is fighting current UK law with the Don't Screen Us Out campaign.
Hello Lynn, tell us what exactly is Don't Screen Us Out.
Don't Screen Us Out is a campaign that was started in 2016 with the idea that we would try and push for the changes that were needed around prenatal screening for Down syndrome, because we were alarmed by the high rates of abortion following the news that a baby had Down syndrome. So we felt this was a good opportunity because the government or the screening committee were introducing a new screening test, and we thought this was a good time to ask them to, look over the whole process and see what changes needed to be made, because nothing had been done like that since screening's inception in the 70s.
So why is it, do you think, that Down syndrome is so highly stigmatised?
Well, I think the fact that often the people that you meet when you're pregnant in screening, they don't have the lived experience of Down syndrome. Most people haven't known someone with Down syndrome. They have a sort of old-fashioned idea of what it is to live with Down syndrome. Most pregnant women don't know what it is to live with Down syndrome or know very much about it, and research has confirmed that in the past. So I think that, and then because of the sort of, idea that most people do go on to abort, it's then seen as, oh, this must be a very difficult life or a very challenged life. And that's actually in contrast to reality. And, that's the sort of thing that our campaign seeks to do, is to let people know that a life with Down syndrome is a life the same as any other life, and that there is great potential there.
Yeah, so how would you say society could change to be more accepting of people with Down syndrome?
More inclusion generally, as I say. I think starting way back at pre-birth, we could be better at telling, that should be used as an opportunity to tell people the good things about life with Down syndrome. It should be awareness raising in a positive way. I think also we've got involved in a campaign that's around abortion law, because again, disability has been singled out in the abortion law, whereas a baby without a congenital disability could only be aborted up to 24 weeks. If a baby is found to have a disability, they can be aborted up to birth. And we think that's discriminatory. And I've been involved in a legal case that a young woman with Down syndrome has taken up to challenge the disability clause in the abortion law. So I think there are several changes that could be made. And I think the government, if they're running a screening programme, have to be addressing these issues, and they have to be giving some balance to what's happening during screening and during pregnancy.
Heidi's campaign has also previously been backed by actress Sally Phillips. How has that impacted the cause?
I think it's always good to have someone who's well known involved, but what we found is actually the public have really embraced Heidi's case. You may have seen her on, doing media interviews. She comes across very well. We launched a campaign to raise lots of money to pay for lawyers for the case, and almost 4,000 donations have been made there. So I think whilst it's been good to have a celebrity who has backed what Heidi is doing, I think she has also basically appealed to the public and to the media. And what we found when the case was underway was that a lot of people in the media didn't actually know that the law singled out people with disability in this way. So I think the amount of awareness raising that Heidi herself has done with this case is quite hard to sort of work out. So I think Heidi has been a bigger pool than someone who has some celebrity with this. case.
Yeah. So now, if this was passed by law, this would limit women's choices when it comes to how they choose to have their child. What response would you give to that?
Well, I think choices are always limited. You know, with the new screening test, it was decided that you wouldn't know whether your baby was a boy or a girl, so they wouldn't be disclosing that sort of information. So I think choices are always limited, but I think that sort of idea that you're limiting choice comes from a perspective that thinks a life with Down syndrome is a lesser life and a more challenging life than one without. And I think, again, if people were more aware that it's not a bad thing to have Down syndrome, they wouldn't see that as choices being limited. They would see that their baby, which they have wanted, you know, it's not an unwanted pregnancy, but they would see that their baby, you know, is as precious as any other baby. And I think that's the whole idea that we have to change, that society has, that this, we're taking a choice away somehow, rather than we should be embracing the choices that women make to have a baby, and that a baby might have to have a disability.
Yeah. So if you had the chance to offer some guidance to someone who is now expecting a baby that's considered to have Down syndrome, what would that advice be?
Well, I would tell them that research tells us that people that have babies with Down syndrome are very happy with their lives. People with Down syndrome are very happy with their lives. Whilst it's difficult to get jobs, etc., my own daughter has a job and she gets paid for it, which is great. So, you know, this weekend I'm going to Heidi Crowther's wedding reception, so people with Down syndrome can get married. I think it's teach yourself about what it is to live with Down syndrome today and the opportunities that, you know, that might come, rather than thinking about the limitations. And also that last week we had a law passed in the UK called the Down Syndrome Act, and I hope also that will make life a bit easier for parents in the early years who are fighting for, you know, the right services for their child. So I think it's all looking good for people, and I think it can get a lot better. And I think we have to look and we have to see, you know, there are now people being represented on TV, you know, on radio, etc. And I think just to take a deep breath, because it probably is a shock. Most people don't have a baby with Down syndrome, but I think to say that it will be okay. And I think, you know, go for it.
Well, Lynn, thank you so much for giving us the time today.
You're most welcome. Glad to share everything with you.
Well, that's all we have time for today. I think it's been a great success, don't you?
Yes, I do, Ollie. And if you or anyone you know was affected by the contents in the show, please visit the websites on screen now or call the helpline.
If today wasn't enlightening enough for you, then you can also head over to our socials to share your own stories.
That's all from us in the studio.
It's been great having you all here with us, and a huge thank you to our guest presenter, Isabelle.
And a thank you to those watching at home. Good night.